inflation is slowing, but the price of everything from health care to housing to groceries is still too high, and that hurts. The question is, who's actually going to do something about it? All right, y'all already know the answer, but let me give it to you anyway. And this is, you have to do a little bit of homework, kind of examine their plans. So Donald Trump's plan is to give another massive tax cut to billionaires and big corporations. Do not boo. Vote. Now, I'll be honest with you. I've been talking to people around the country, and sometimes I hear people say, well, you know, yeah, I know Trump's kind of goofy, but I do remember the economy when he first came in, it was pretty good. And I say, yeah, it was good because it was my economy. I know y'all remember it. I know folks in Detroit remember it. I spent 8 years cleaning up the mess that the Republicans left me. Y'all remember the auto industry in America was flat on its back. They didn't want to lift a finger to help. And we made the investments to reopen those factories and put people back to work. And by the time I left office, I handed over to Donald Trump 75 straight months of jobs growth. Yeah, the economy was good because we did the work. And all he did was give a tax cut to people who didn't need one. Drove up the deficit in the process. Now he wants to do it again. Do not fall for that okey doke. Don't be bamboozled. All right, so that's on the economy. When it comes to health care, Donald Trump's only answer is to end the Affordable Care Act. Now, do not boo. Now, if you ask him, hold on. If you ask him, he doesn't really even know why he wants to end it, except for the fact that I did it. So, but the problem he's got, the problem Vance has got, is it's now popular, right? Because 50 million people have gotten health care from it that didn't have it before. So y'all remember this? A couple weeks ago, his running mate is debating Tim, and his running mate says, has the nerve, has the chutzpah, has the gall to say Donald Trump, quote, salvaged the Affordable Care Act. Donald Trump spent his entire presidency trying to tear that thing down. And he couldn't even do that right. And now, 8 years after he was elected, the moderator in the debate, y'all remember this, moderator says, all right, well, if you take down the Affordable Care Act, what are you going to do? He said, well, I've got concepts of a plan for how we replace it. Concepts of a plan. Now, I want y'all to think about this. Let's say your boss gives you an assignment, says, look, I need it by Friday. So Friday rolls around, your boss says, did you finish that project? And you say, well, actually, I haven't started, but I do have a concept of a plan. Or you could try it at home. Honey, did you do the dishes? I have a concept of a plan to do the dishes. How's that going to go over? If it would not work for you, why should it work for the President of the United States? And the good news is that Kamala Harris does not have concepts of a plan. She has an actual plan to make your life better. To bring down the cost of things like groceries. She'll go after corporations that are trying to jack up prices, just like she went after the big banks and for-profit colleges when she was the Attorney General in California. To lower housing costs, Kamala is going to cut red tape and work with state and local governments and the private sector to build 3 million new homes. She'll give first-time home buyers up to $25,000 to help with a down payment. Concrete plans. To lower health care costs, Kamala's already worked with Joe Biden to bring down the cost of insulin and more than 50 prescription drugs. She's going to do more. As president, she will not stop working to limit out-of-pocket costs and protect your care. And instead of giving more tax cuts to billionaires, raising prices on working families, Kamala's going to give a tax cut to people who need it. 100 million working class and middle class and working people here in America. You know, that's who Kamala is. That's what she stands for, not concepts of a plan, but actual plans. Now, if you challenge Trump or Vance on these quote-unquote concepts, then they'll fall back on one answer. This is their go-to about everything. Blame immigrants. He wants you to believe that if you let him round up whoever he wants and ship them out, all your problems will be solved. Now, hold on a second. Listen up. There are going to be a couple times where I really want to key in on this, because this is a big issue that's driving a lot of folks to think about voting for this guy. So I want everybody to pay attention, and I want you to say this when you're talking to folks who are concerned about immigration. Immigration is a real issue at our borders. We are a nation of immigrants, and we are a nation of laws. And we have to make sure the system works the way it's supposed to, and it's orderly. That's true. But here's the thing I don't understand. Him and Vance are always talking about, well, Kamala, you've been vice president for 4 years. Let me tell you something. Wasn't Donald Trump president for 4 years? Wasn't he in charge for 4 years? If rounding up and deporting millions of desperate people, many of them who are women and children, if that's the answer to everything, why is it that the number of undocumented immigrants basically stayed the same when he left office as when he took office? He did not solve the problem, and I'll tell you why. Because he does not have a real plan. He has concepts of a plan, and it's a mean and ugly plan designed to make people resentful and angry. So I'll tell you what an actual plan is. There was an actual plan to bring order at the border and fix our immigration system. A bipartisan deal that Kamala Harris supported, even though it was written by one of the most conservative Republicans in Congress. It was ready for a vote. And Donald Trump decided to tank that bill. He called up and pressured Republicans, do not vote for this, because he wanted the issue for the election. He thought it would be helpful to him when he ran for president. Think about that. We do not need a president who will make problems worse just to make his politics better. We need a president who wants to solve problems and make your life better. And that's what Kamala Harris is going to do. And to help her do it, she will need a Senate full of public servants like Alyssa Slotkin. Now, some of you may not be aware, Alyssa and I go way back. She was in the administration. She was sitting in the Situation Room. She delivered national security briefings on some of the toughest issues we were dealing with. Alyssa don't play. She is serious. And on some of these key issues, I'd have her negotiate on my behalf because she understood when you had to compromise and when you had to stand firm. And in Congress, she's been working on the issues that matter to you, like bringing down the cost of prescription drugs and bringing supply chains back to the U.S. and creating good jobs right here in Michigan, working with state government. This is the kind of person we need in Washington, because presidents can't do it alone. She will help Kamala and Tim get stuff done. Somebody who shares our values and wants to move the country forward and not back. Now, one of those values we share, that we talk about, that we worked on, that all of you care deeply about, is freedom. So let me talk about that just for a second. I don't think we've ever had an election with candidates whose conception, whose understanding of freedom is so different. Because for Donald Trump and his cronies, freedom basically just means getting away with stuff. He wants to be able to, like, fire workers, bust unions, and get away with it. Or allow companies to pollute our water and our air and get away with it. He said in the middle of the pandemic, when people were dying and hospitals were being overrun, he actually said, I do not take any responsibility at all. I do not believe any American president has ever uttered those words before. But that's his idea of freedom. He gets to do what he wants, and he's not responsible for anything. We have a broader idea of freedom. We believe in the freedom if we're willing to work hard to provide for our families. We believe in the freedom to breathe clean air and drink clean water and send our kids to school without worrying if they're going to come home. We believe that true freedom gives each of us the right to make decisions about our own lives, and it requires us to recognize that other people have the freedom to make different choices. You know, I've always said on tough issues, let's take one of the toughest. There are good people of conscience on both sides of the abortion divide. And I respect anybody whose faith tells them this isn't something they can support. But if we believe in freedom, then we should at least agree that such a deeply personal decision should be made by the woman whose body is involved and not by politicians. And the majority of America agrees with it, which is why you've been seeing Donald Trump try to tie himself into a pretzel on this issue. When he ran for president the first time, he said he'd support punishing women who got an abortion. Now, just a few weeks ago, he told women, I'll be your protector. I'll tell you how he protected you. He handpicked 3 of the Supreme Court justices that overturned Roe versus Wade. He bragged about it. Now there are Trump abortion bans in 20 states, many of them with no exceptions for rape and incest. And he's going around saying everybody wanted it that way. No, they did not. So Donald Trump may be confused, but let's be clear about what's at stake here. If you send Alyssa Slotkin to the Senate, she will vote to restore the reproductive freedom that women had for nearly 50 years. And if Congress passes that bill, Kamala Harris will sign it into law. And that is just one example of how elections matter. And I want to spend a little time on this. Don't worry, I'm almost done. Hey, as I get how frustrating politics can seem sometimes. I get frustrated, Lord knows. I don't watch cable news because it gives you a headache, put you in a bad mood, because it seems like folks are just arguing and bickering and mad, and then nothing gets done, and so you start feeling like your vote doesn't matter. But, in fact, your vote does matter, because your vote can make your life a little bit better or a little bit worse. Now, people sometimes, I think, have the wrong idea. Politics is not going to solve all your problems. Poverty will still exist, even if Kamala Harris and Tim Walz get elected, because it's a hard problem. Racism doesn't go away based on one vote or one administration. Those things don't stop overnight. The way you make progress is by making things better a little bit at a time, and then over time, those little differences become big differences. And so, look, I'll use an example. Because over 8 years, Alyssa, myself, others worked really hard, and we got a lot of stuff done, but there's a bunch of stuff I didn't get done. I didn't solve, for example, all the problems with our healthcare system, but almost 50 million people have gotten healthcare through the Affordable Care Act. It made a difference in their lives. Everybody here, everybody in this auditorium knows somebody who would not have had health insurance if it hadn't been for that bill. More than 50 million people with pre-existing conditions can no longer be denied coverage or charged more. Before that passed, if you had a kid who got sick, even if they got cured, the fact that they had gotten sick before, that they had a pre-existing condition, they might not have been able to get insurance. So, no. Look, I'm using this as an example to tell you that a little bit of change for the better makes a difference. I'll give you another example that nobody talks about anymore. And I don't know why we don't talk about it. When I was president, in my second term, and we had been dealing with, we had seen like the H1N1 virus and the Ebola virus, and I talked to scientists, and they said, look, with globalization, with travel, growing populations, at some point we're going to have a big pandemic. So I said to my team, I said, look, the same way we plan for hurricanes and tornadoes, we actually have to plan for a pandemic. So we put together a whole playbook, talked to the experts, we got all the agencies together. We said, if a pandemic happens, here's how we are going to deal with the public health system. Here's how we're going to deal with the schools. Here's how we're going to accelerate vaccinations. And here's how we're going to explain it to people so people can understand it. We've practiced it. So when Donald Trump comes in, just like I handed him a good economy, I handed him this playbook, and he just, I guess, dropped it in the trash bin. 3 years later, a pandemic hits. Now, I want to be really fair and accurate on this, all right? No matter who was president, COVID was going to be a crisis. No matter who was president, people were going to die and get sick, and there were going to be businesses that shut down for a while and travel restrictions, because this is something that hadn't happened for 100 years. But if you look at right across the border in Canada, their per capita death rate from COVID was 60% lower than here in the U.S. Now I want you to do the math. Over 1 million people died during the pandemic here in the U.S. 60% is 600,000 people. That's people's grandparents, people's parents, co-workers, friends. Some of those folks might be alive if we have a competent president who actually is paying attention and doing their homework and actually trying to make things better, as opposed to telling people, go ahead and inject bleach. That might work. So do not tell me that your vote doesn't matter.